Good evening, ladies, lords, and lasses, and all those in between. My name is the Deathly Shad, and we are here today to recap my current campaign, The Reigns of Vitrium. We are going to be going through what all everyone has missed up to this point up to the point of the first stream of my game, as well as cover a bit about the world of Mir in which it takes place, including some information about the surrounding countries and, of course, Vitrium proper. This is, of course, a recap episode for, to show everyone what they missed. Now, before we get into it, I stream this game every Tuesday at 5 p.m. CST. That is 2200 GMT for those of you who use GMT as a time measurement system. But, with all that said and done, let us get into the recap, and into the history of the world itself. So, this is the land of Mir, in which we have a few countries. The first country that we're going to talk about is Calagrin, which is a cold, isolationist, and Viking-like in nature. They typically keep to themselves and have this wall between them and Xanadu proper. The next country, of course, we're talking about is Xanadu, which is a tourist country which is full of beautiful vistas and touristic locations, and their main trade export is just getting people to come and see what their beaches are like, or see what the Crescent Moon Island is like, and so on and so forth. It is full of shapeshifters and changelings, and they've even tamed mimics, so understandably Calagrin is very not too good with this, so that's why they have the big wall. The next country on the list is the country of Celeste, which is, of course, a more magic-focused country with, a bunch of magic elitists in it. It is often said that might makes right in Celeste, and magic is might, so ergo magic is right. It's kind of like their own way of looking at the world, which some people may or may not agree with. The next country we have, of course, is the Ember Stick, which is a pirate nation comprised of merchant vessels and is very mercantilistic in nature. They have a lot of trade and exports between Vuori and Xanadu and even Calagrin to some extent. And they're kind of like on the upper right hand of the map as kind of like a nice little, country that you can go to. The next one up is Mirzai, which is currently embroiled in a big-time political strife, which, of course, I will get to if the players ever decide to go to Mirzai proper. Who knows? I quite don't if they ever will. But the main export of Mirzai is this magical material known as Zimlite, which you can only find in Mirzai. And it's like compressed and hardened magic that has different abilities depending on the nature of the Zimlite you find, such as Calagrin's, Sephirim, and so on and so forth. And, of course, if we ever go to Mirzai, I will explain this to the players and to you guys as a whole. The next country we have up is Vuori, which is comprised of primarily humans, and they hate necromancers, monsters, and they have a severe undead problem. There's certainly a big reason as to why they hate undead and necromancers so much, but they hate them to kind of like the nth degree. And for good reasons. Of course, I have to give credit to D-Day Skeleton, Questura, and Dork Among Us, and Garlic Bread for allowing me to use their countries within this campaign, because the world of Mir used to be a Westmarch setting that me and a bunch of my friends and other GMs used to run, but since that Westmarch has tapered off of late and has died, I decided to take my country of Vitrium and make my own little homebrew campaign about it, and close up some loose ends there, tell some new stories, and try and bring together what I wanted to tell in the Westmarch but never really got the chance to. Hence why this campaign exists. Hence why this world is like it is, and hence why certain countries are of my own creation in addition to Vitrium, since their creators, of course, did not allow me to use their countries. Moving on, we have my country, the country of Vitrium. And of course, this is Vitrium Terandria, because Terandria recently acquired a bunch of land from Vitrium, but we will get into that later. Vitrium started off as just the city of Deepwood, and the city of Deepwood is built upon this high-rise mound-like structure that keeps it out of the wetlands below it, because the country of Vitrium is a rainforest, and it rains a lot. Like, it's safe to assume that it's always a constant light drizzle at best, or a heavy monsoon-like downpour at worst. And it's more a bit like England in that sort of like humid nature, I guess. The main ruling body of Vitrium is, of course, the Assembly of Crafts, and they are kind of like in control of the country itself. If there is a craft, if there is a set of merchants, then they have some kind of political power within this council of individuals who kind of like sort of rule Vitrium itself. The most important aspect of Vitrium is, of course, the magic rain that falls within the country itself. It is a very unique aspect that it has over other countries, and as a result of that, a lot of druids and a lot of rangers make their home here, because the magic rain itself makes plants and plant-like creations and so on and so forth, trees and whatnot, grow and rapidly decay. And it makes them grow and rapidly decay at an exponential rate. For example, a dandelion will go through its entire life cycle in a matter of seconds with this magic rain pouring down on it. Of course, the rain itself does not ever evenly distribute its, love and care, so the reason why this entire land flourishes because there is so much plant life and so much abundance of it that the rain itself kind of like dilutes itself upon the forest floor and the forest itself. Of course, however, the magic rain has given birth to a new type of technology called Floratech. Now, Floratech is basically whenever the druids of Vitrium have managed to take a seed and infuse it with the magic rain, so whenever it meets a certain criteria, it will pop out and grow rapidly to its matured state before, more often than not, just rapidly decomposing back into mulch afterwards. The Floratech that we have in the setting so far is primarily weaponized to a certain degree, but that's mainly to help fight the current war that Vitrium is embroiled within, which I will get to at a later point in this video. The other main aspect that it has to it is it helped build the city of Hardwood, which is made entirely in the Treetop Village, and we will get to that in a little bit. But that is the Magic Rain and Floratech, which is a result of the Magic Rain. The Magic Rain also has a variety of other effects that affect the environment and just like the nature of Vitrium itself, but of course those are to be discussed later. Deepwood is kind of like the seat of power of Vitrium, and the people who control it are the Rivendell family, and they mainly control it through the College of Magic, which is considered like the premier magic school outside of a country like Celeste, which considers itself to be better than Vitrium, but that is just Celeste in a nutshell. The College of Magic in Deepwood is ran by the head of the family, a Miss Drolam Rivendell, who is a Noggin Coatl woman. However, lately in years, she has gone senile with her old age and is no longer able to be the proper dean of the college anymore. So she has been replaced by the various archmages of the school, acting as kind of like a council, standing in until Drolam somehow makes a comeback, which they've kind of lost a bit of hope for in recent years. Still, Deepwood is the capital city of Vitrium in general. Next up, we have Morningwood, which is over in the bottom left of the map. And Morningwood is home to the Bard's College. Innuendo completely intended. And the Bard College is the College of Paints, because within Vitrium, art and music kind of go hand in hand, and the Bard's College of Morningwood is all about painting and artistic expression, and as a result, the city of Morningwood is completely covered in graffiti, in all kinds of graffiti. You have kids' chalk drawings in the streets, you have these beautiful mosaics spanning 3 different houses at the same time that have been built upon by generations of art students at this college. And, well, as much as the city itself is kind of lacking in real estate for this art after so many years of just, painting and drawing over things and so on and so forth, a new addition to Morningwood is, of course, the big wall that they have built. Morningwood is, of course, also the seat of power for the military of Vitrium that is currently working as a buffer between Morningwood and the Bramble, which we will get to later on in this Vitrium and Terandria lore discussion. But Morningwood is known for the Bard's College. It is the premier destination if you want to learn art or music or dance, even. If you want to be a bard, you go to Morningwood. And that's just that. Next up, we have Hardwood. Now, Hardwood is a city built entirely in the treetops, as I said before, and it was built through a culmination of druidic magic and the help of local jungle kobolds, which are a native race to Vitrium itself, and I will get to those in a later point in this particular section as well. But with the help of the jungle kobolds, the druid circles in Vitrium managed to sculpt into hardwood, into the trees of these massive redwoods that are like twice the size of normal redwoods. If you can believe that, if you can even envision that. That is what Hardwood is. It is a massive city built into these large, humongous trees. And the only part in this city that's even made of metal is the Alchemist College, and that's probably for obvious reasons. The Alchemist College here is, of course, ran by a Mr. Malcolm Rivendell, who is the husband of Dralaw. He is the dean of the Alchemist College, and although he is a human, he isn't old or senile because, well, he died during the formation of Hardwood, and, well, he had a clone spell that his wife had given him, so he got better, as some might say. But he is the dean of the Alchemist College in Hardwood. Hardwood's also home to the Ranger Conclaves, which kind of act as like the de facto police force of Hardwood itself instead of a normal traditional city watch. Beware of the druids of Hardwood, though, because they don't take too kindly to animal abusers, outside influencers, and so on and so forth. It really depends on what circle you get. All circles are represented, all conclaves are represented, but depending on who you run into, you may get a bit more of an abrasive individual than normal. Next up, of course, we have the city of Lakepost, and the Artificer College, as well as glass creatures. Now, the city of Lakepost is sat upon the edge of the Glass Lake, and the Glass Lake is known for being influenced by the magic rains of Vitrium. Now, as was found out after so many years of living there in Lakepost, creatures that are within the Glass Lake are made translucent and invisible by the very nature of the magical rain. It is uncertain as to what exactly causes this, but what is known is that if you ingest food from the Glass Lake over the course of like decades, or let's say even like hundreds of years in some cases, you eventually become transparent and see-through as you imbibe this magical source. And of course, other creatures are able to do this as well. So within Lake Post, you have a lot of not only humanoids walking around whom are completely invisible, like Hollow Man style, with only their clothes visible, but you have monsters and beasts and the very creatures of the Glass Lake itself that are also invisible and translucent as well. Try going swimming in the Glass Lake when you know that there are glass sharks within. If you get the reference, you do indeed. Next up, we have the Artificer College, which was able to produce a solution to these glass creatures in the form of fairy lanterns. Now, fairy lanterns are these lanterns that exude this aura of rainbow light. And what this aura does is it produces the effect of a fairy fire spell. It renders glass creatures visible by an outline, and it gives everyone else this rainbow outline. So what the Artificer College was able to do is they were able to make a lot of these lanterns and just kind of like hang them up along the edges of the city itself and around the city itself and all throughout the forest around the city, and they were able to prevent their city from just being completely taken apart by these glass creatures. And they were able to save people in a manner. And also, as a result, people in Lake Post find themselves a lot less prone to being stolen from, which is probably a good thing, all things considered. Especially since, everyone has like this big rainbow aura around them and so on and so forth. But that is Lake Post, the Artificer College, and the Glass Creatures. Recently speaking, Lake Post suffered a very big disaster. This storm came along roughly, I want to say, a year ago in historical timeline for Vitrium at the very least, and it kind of like blew out a bunch of the glass in these lanterns and destroyed them. So Lake Post has since recovered from this, but they don't have near the number of these rainbow lanterns they used to have. But they're getting there. They're repairing more of them. Next up, we have the Wandering Woods, which is a large forest comprised of plants, trees, bushes, and so on and so forth that move. So it's kind of a logistics nightmare to go into the Wandering Woods and just kind of try to make it out without being, lost forever and dying and feeding the plants. There used to be a clan of individuals that could brave the Wandering Woods known as the Merit Clan, but they have since left Vitrium for reasons unknown to those within. Next up we have, of course, the very infamous Bramble. Now, the Bramble is this big black stain upon Vitrium of gross Icarus creatures and these long dead plants that are still somehow alive. The Bramble itself is host to a large collection of undead creatures known as Bramblites. They are undead plant zombies, quotation marks, that spread their infection through these thorny black growths that kind of like sprout along their body in the form of vines and from their coagulated blood and so on and so forth. And that is how they spread this infection to other creatures. The Bramble is considered a death zone, and the military has yet to properly scale itself up into a full assault on the Bramble as of current time. However, that's not to say they aren't preparing for such eventualities. The Bramble is also known for having a tower in the center of it that according to legend, may have had a demi-lich within it that kind of awakened all the undead whenever a group of adventurers that were simply exploring it when it was dormant activated it. But, of course, that is merely conjecture at this point in time. There are no confirmations as to if that is or isn't the tale. Next up, we have a spelling mistake. We have the country of Terandria and their capital city of Calenfur, which is posted upon a little lake bed up in the top right-hand corner. Terandria is a more recent development in the history of Vitrium. Roughly 2 years ago, during a mission in Frogtown, the Queen of Terandria kind of sat herself down in Frogtown, which was a place located where Calenfur was, or is currently, and she basically laid claim to an entire swath of territory and said, "This is my land, it was always my land, and now it is my land once again." And, well, Vitrium isn't exactly the most militaristic force, and the leader of the country, Miss Rivendell, did go and speak to the Queen of Terandria, and now there's this bit of a shaky truce between the two countries, and where it's like, sure, you did take a bunch of land from us, just out of nowhere, but at the same time, it's a bunch of land from a place we don't really care about all that much, so I guess it's okay, type of situation. Who knows? Next up, we have the Azdodi Swamps, which is in the top right-hand corner, and the Tatalon Jungles, which is just above the city of Deepwood and to the left. The Azdodi Swamps is a large, swampy marshland that extends basically in the entire upper right-hand corner of the map, and the country of Terandria has recently claimed it as its own. The Azdodi Swamps is, of course, home to lizard folk, dragonborn, and so on and so forth, but it is also home to a legendary creature known as the Ghost of the Swamps, which is this rumor or superstition or this creature this beast that wanders along the borders of the swamps themselves and eats trespassers, so to speak. The Tatalon Jungles, on the other hand, are kind of in the same boat, in that they are a magical forest that seems enchanted to twist and turn people around and lead them back to where they came. And rumors have long since persisted that the travelers come from the Tatalon Jungles themselves, but of course, no one really knows for sure, as those people can come from pretty much wherever they want, which we will speak about them in just a moment. With all of that in mind, now to get to the various races that you will find in Vitrium. Of course, because it's, me and I love my diversity in races, there are a lot of races in Vitrium, but they are primarily Tabaxi, Gnolls, Oryctali, which are rabbit folk, Inumashi, which are dog folk, or dog people. You have jungle kobolds, you have regular kobolds, you have dragonborn lizard folk, Nagas, and Yuan-Ti, all of which are in my country and are typically neutral to other people. So, forget what you know about Forgotten Realms lore. These are not the Yuan-Ti you know from yesteryear, nor are they the Gnolls of whatever source you may be thinking of. These are all native to this land, and they are all neutral to this land. Of course, there are other exterior races like elves, humans, halflings, and gnomes, and so on and so forth, but they are certainly in the minority. And that's fine. Let's see. And now we come to the introduction of the main party. We just got finished discussing all of Vitrium and all of its lore, and Terandria included, what little there is known about them. And now I get to introduce the party. First of all, we have Rensois, the Spore Monk Druid, or the Spore Druid Monk hybrid classed character. Rensois is a very short orc tally woman, and she is typically characterized as being very slow, methodical, but not without her fits of passion. Next up, you have their friend Vaylin, that they refer to as Longlegs, who is another Oriktali character, another Rabbitful character. They are a Grave Domain cleric, and they are regular-sized rabbit folk, standing at around, I want to say 5 feet, while Rensois is like 3 feet. The two of them are actually from the same master and mentor, which we will get to at a later point in time. Then you have Soren Wanderwind, who is a Oriktali or Rabbit Folk samurai. And I don't mean the subclass of fighter for samurai, I mean its own individual class, which I found on DM's Guild, and I have been unable to locate there again, sadly. But it is a class that I really liked, and I really am kind of stoked to see someone play. The next person who I'd like to introduce is Agathar the Reanimator, or as he was once known, Agathar the Desolator. Now, keep in mind that was a working title. Agathar is the sweetest little jungle kobold you could ever, think of or imagine or find in any sense of the imagination. There he is depicted with his current undead servant that he calls Bell, which is a giant elk skeleton that he's reanimated. And last but simply not least is Percival Hemora Hemlock, a halfling divination wizard that is very grumpy and is a caravan owner or a wagon or a wagon train leader. She is not very nice to most people. She's very catty, very irritable, but she has a heart of gold, or at least so some people believe. Who will say? Only time will tell. But this is the party of players we have. And now to get into the recap itself. First of all, we have their very first mission, their meetup and their seed delivery. So, first of all, Percival and company are hired to escort seeds from Deepwood to Hardwood. And these seeds are basically untrained or unmagicified seeds that they're basically going to infuse and turn into for attack over in Hardwood. Along the way, they encounter a strange entity of some description, which I will get to in the very next slide. And they eventually, of course, do arrive and make their delivery with no other real notable encounters. At this current point in time, the party members are Rensois, Vaylin, Soren, and Percival, as they have not yet met Agathar. Of course, the very strange entity they meet is a Aarakocran woman, ? Who is your best friend, Garmenthi Felu. She was met upon a moonless night, and she gave them all quite a fright because they sensed undead around her, or at least the Grave Domain cleric did at the very least, but she was friendly enough. She only wanted friendship and to shake people's hands, and as of current timeline, as of current session, she has only managed to get the handshake of one player, and that was Rensois, for better or for worse, but who knows? We'll probably find that out later. And of course, the art is by a Miss Angel Cake, who does a lot of the art for my characters and my for a few of the characters that I have as NPCs. Next up, we have the Master's Call and the Journey There. Whenever they arrived at Hardwood and they delivered the seeds, Master Mel, utilizing a sending spell, sent a message to Renslaw basically saying to her, hey, come over to my house and bring all your friends as well. Bring your fellow other apprentice of mine, Valen, and bring that Soren character and that Percival character. I have a mission for you all. And she also said something about maybe having a new apprentice for them to meet. Wonder who that could be. Of course, and strangely enough, on their way there, they encounter Garmenthi again, because they encountered this woman like 3 or 4 times in like the first few sessions of the campaign, because random encounters, everyone. Awesome. But of course, that is what they do. They make their way from Hardwood to around the Wandering Woods into her home, which is in the middle of the Bramble and the Wandering Woods itself. Now, of course, introducing Master Mel. She is a black-scaled kobold archdruidess, as she calls herself. She personally trained Renslaw, Valen, and Agathar in their respective fields of magic, Agathar being a necromancer, wizard specifically, Renslaw being a spore druid, and Valen being a grave domain cleric. She lives alone by herself within the borderlands between the Bramble and the Wandering Woods, as I've already stated. And she may or may not be insane. It really depends on how you view her. But needless to say, she is very good at what she does, and she has a very interesting teaching style, often feeling that the School of Hard Knocks is the best way to teach anyone their respective field of magic or interest, and so on and so forth. Of course, the art was done by Angel Cake. I will link her for a penny in the description below if you wish to commission her, and so on and so forth. But, she, of course, is the master of 3 of the 5 party members. So, a little connected to the party, one might say, but she basically tasks them with going to a puzzle dungeon in a nearby area to grab this purple orb that she says the players will recognize when they see it, and they are to bring it to her specifically. And that is all they're going to do. They go in the puzzle dungeon, they get the orb, they bring it back to her, and wham bam, thank you ma'am, it's all good. However, on their way to this puzzle dungeon, they encounter a couple things. First of all, a few kindly travelers, which are the travelers in this setting, I haven't gone over them yet, but I'll go over them now. The travelers in this setting are referring to a group of people that call themselves the Travelers. They are very Romani-inspired, they are a very Romani-inspired individual race of people. I mean, not even really race, just a group of people that love riddles, mysteries, and misdirection, and they have a very strange cultural speaking pattern in which they will only speak to someone in questions, such as, where are you? Such as, where are you going? Who are you? What are you doing here? Or, if none of those work, they will simply shrug and give you a maybe with a question mark, followed quickly by a who knows, I don't. Because everything is uncertain around them. They love their riddles, they love their puzzles, and, the players may or may not be annoyed by them a little bit, but I love them. Other notable travelers are a woman named Sinclair, a tabaxi female with a missing eye that has been replaced by this red glowing gem that acts as kind of like a sight apparatus, like a Mad Eye Moody style. And Felix Ferdinand, intrepid adventurer, explorer, so on and so forth, whom is a black fur tabaxi with green stripes and green eyes, who kind of is very short, standing at like 4'8", but he is a little adventurer, and he loves to travel and explore the land of Vitrium and so on and so forth. But those are 2 other travelers of note that they met. Of course, They also encountered a young black dragon by the name of Zuliman the Desecrator. Not any relation to Agathar the Desecrator at this current point in time. But Zuliman, whenever he actually meets the players, decides, hey, I know what you guys have that I want. You guys have free money. I want 500 gold from each of you. No, 500 from the whole party, I believe. Yeah, they had the money for it, so they were able to pay the toll, so to speak, and he flew off to feed his cats. Because he liked cats. Don't worry about that, it'll come back later. Of course, I believe that's the last of the notable encounters, but they do eventually find the puzzle dungeon in question. And now, within the puzzle dungeon, woo-wee, some things happen. Of course, the players encounter a few things, puzzles, a wind tunnel, landlords, and Robin Hood type bandits. Don't ask me how those two coincide with one another. Merchants, and the selling of a very personable sentient broom that Percival wanted to buy, and did buy, and it came without a command word. And she basically said to this broom, you are going to be mine or I will break you. And then it took offense to that, and it kind of ran away. She tried to kill it, and it just ran further away. It managed to fly out of sight and out of mind. Don't worry too much about it. It'll maybe come back later. Who knows? I don't. They eventually get through a very big boss fight with the landlord of the dungeon, who's been selling land to shades in a puzzle dungeon. Just don't question it too much. It's a traveler dungeon. Well, not really a traveler dungeon. It's just a puzzle dungeon. Puzzle dungeons are weird. But they do find the orb in question, and upon touching this orb, they find themselves, or at least Rensois did, found herself in a dreamlike state, in which she was working through memories or dreams of someone else. Of course, those dreams that, she had whenever she touched this orb, eventually rolled into a sort of story of sorts. Which, of course, she still makes dream rolls every now and then, as this orb kind of connected to her in a way. But effectively what these dreams so far have been about is this kobold, as they have fallen from grace into the Shadowfell. And then after wandering through the Shadowfell, giving up on life, they eventually find a dragon that has also made their way to the Shadowfell. And through the harvesting of this dragon's body and its very essence, this kobold was able to warp magic and teleport to the material plane again, finding themselves stranded on a desert in which they helped individuals that were running by escape being captured by a bunch of bandits. At least, that was so far as what the dreams have told so far. And obviously there was a great hoard of treasure included in this treasure room, and maybe cursed weapon. It was a cursed sentient weapon, which was immediately disenchanted, and its spirit attached itself to Agathar, but don't worry too much about that. At least not yet. On the return trip, Agathar, being pressured by this spirit that's been attached to him, forces him to get her a new body. Since her previous one is unenchanted and destroyed, she wants a real body, because she's a vengeful spirit that needs to kill someone. Who knows? She does, but no one else seems to know at the moment. So he kills a bunch of squirrels on his way back, and invokes the ire of the squirrels, and is attacked by dire squirrels, which are much larger and much scarier, but the party kills them. And with those squirrel corpses and the corpses of the dire squirrels, he basically takes them all together, and through this ritual that he doesn't quite remember exactly, because he went into a trance-like state as he did it, being directed by the spirit that was attached to him. He knitted together a squirrel beastkin's body and placed her soul within it, binding her to him and him to her. And as he woke her up, she named herself Soy Fang. And then, well, she had to go as the Grave Domain Cleric Valen was stepping in to be like, that's an undead. I want to kill it. And she said, nah, Chief, I'm about to head out. And so she ran. However, this ritual drained Agathar, left him with a lot of exhaustion, a lot of blood loss, and a new brand upon his right palm. This upon his forehead, my fault. This runic glyph that hasn't quite gone away yet, but he manages to hide with a little bandana of sorts. Next up, the party also encounters Zuliman the Desecrator again, but this time they decide they don't want to pay the toll. They just want to kill him. Of course, the final blow was struck by a Mr. Soren Wanderwind. Through a combination of cat and mouse and tactics and the divination wizard rolling quotation marks with portents a natural 20 on a crack with a high-level chromatic orb. Before, of course, he was cut out the sky by the samurai. Dying with words on his breath and no thoughts in his mind. Next up, of course, the bandits, a group of bandits do attack the party as well, but they're scared off by Soren in a very badass manner. Basically, this sorceress that was with these bandits uses a silence spell to put him in a bubble of silence as he gets surrounded by a bunch of bandits. So, what does he do? He jumps out of their reach, lands next to her, and cuts down a bandit beside and basically says, "You're going to surrender or I'm going to kill you all." Then a bandit runs up on him, tries to test him. He turns around, one-hit KOs the guy, just right down the middle, sliced in half. Thunderbolt comes down, strikes him, scares all the bandits off in an insanely badass manner. Natural 20 on the intimidation and everything. It was beautiful. But eventually they do make their way back to Mel's house. Of course, whenever they get to Mel's house, they deliver to her the orb, which they find out contains a ring within it. A ring that Mel says is meant for the Archmage of Necromancy. And it is at this point in time that we find out about these rings that Mel is looking for. These rings that act as kind of like a reminder of a duty that is owed, that an Archmage must present themselves to perform. And, well, the party then discovers that Mel is the Archmage of Necromancy, as she puts on her ring. She then finds out about Zuliman's untimely death, and she beseeches the players to go find his Horde. Knowing the guy and knowing where his Horde is, she directs them to his Horde, and tells them to go post haste. Of course, upon returning to the party, reaching it, they make a discovery. Upon reaching his Horde, that is. They make the discovery that Zuliman was a dragon that had a wife at a point in time. A woman by the name of Heather that was a tabaxi, and that he called his princess. And he had a lot of children with her, I think roughly 12, that are these half-dragon, half-tabaxi mixes. The players, of course, finding out about this, feel very insanely guilty about the fact that they killed these kids' dad. But, Agathar gets a plan in his head. So, they escort the children back to Master Mel, for safekeeping, so to speak. But Agathar, having harvested Zuliman's corpse earlier, whenever they killed him, to use him for parts for Belle and to upgrade her, and so to speak, he uses this dragon's bones, scales, and skin, so to speak, and his meat and muscles. But he manages to, with Master Mel's direction, create a dragonborn body for Zuliman and attach his soul to him, to this new body that he made for him. But of course, it's at great cost. Agathar goes from being a level 7 character to being level 5 and having 5 levels of exhaustion with this permanent scar upon his body in the form of his arms having no color at all and being translucently white. And so translucently you can even see the bones through them, and so cold to the touch that it almost feels like he can drain the warmth from things he touches. But, as he puts it, it was a price worth paying to make sure those kids did not go without a father. It's a beautiful roleplay moment. And knowing my players, there's going to be many more like them during the streams. But of course, the party stays a little bit longer to help him recover from his injuries before they begin to make their way on. Of course, the journey back to Deepwood is fairly simple, fairly short. They are, of course, sent off by Master Mel to recover the Abjuration Archmage's ring, which is theorized to be in the central tower of the Deepwood School of Magic, the 100-level puzzle dungeon that the dean of the college has evidently set up to help, determine if her students graduating are really worth the salt that they say they are. Most of which aren't. This 100-level puzzle dungeon that they're looking to go to is 100 levels. And as of current lore, out of the 80 years this tower has existed, only 7 individuals have managed to pass its test and reach the top. So, take that how you will. Of course, the party makes quick work of a group of bandits that accost them, and yes, they are the same ones that attacked them earlier that Soren managed to scare off. However, they were kind of under new management. However, despite attacking them many more times, each one leads to no avail, and they just get completely annihilated. This group of bandits no longer exists. They're gone. The party killed them all. The lone exception being the former leader of the band named Sylvia, whom Soren, after spotting her in the woods again, about to ambush them, but before she decides not to, because just one of them was enough to wipe out, a bunch of her people. She actually met with him at a campfire the night before they were attacked by these bandits, and after hearing her story of how she comes from Mirzai, how her family is impoverished and in a lot of debt, he gives her 1,000 gold and tells her to make a new life for herself and send that money to her family. To which she very, very, very greatly takes that and just moves. Just leaves. Which is probably the best that she did, because afterwards, entire bandit group just destroyed. But they do eventually make their way all the way to Deepwood. Still, you might be asking yourself, what's next? Now that the party is finally in Deepwood, you are pretty much completely caught up with what has happened up to this point in time within my campaign, The Reigns of Vitrium. The party is here, of course, to find out about Drom's puzzle dungeon, deciding to... They, of course, whenever they found out about how hard it was, wanted to find a way to circumnavigate it. And by the way they're going to circumnavigate is by joining the police force and helping the granddaughter of one of her kids to with this current case they're working on. They're hoping to get in with the mother whom has beaten the dungeon before, this Kylie Rivendell, who's apparently the dean of the Bards College. And they are joined by a temporary colleague by the name of Maxwell Carmine, whom is an Inumashi grizzled detective sort of individual. Still, that is the story so far. And I really hope to see you guys at the streams. I hope to see you guys, watching this video and thinking back on all the good times that you missed and all the good times that are to come. But till then, from me to you, this is the Deathly Shad signing off. And as always, stay classy.